So a warm welcome to all of you this afternoon for joining us. And as we said, if the weather is lovely where you are, a very big thank you for taking the time to come and sit with us. And hopefully we will allow you the chance to get back out there a little bit later on. So this afternoon session is about creating a delivery plan for using START. And John and I are going to go into some detail about our brand new START framework and what that could mean for you and your careers programme. So for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to meet us before, just a quick reminder of who we are. So I'm Jenna and I am the Education Account Manager, and my role is to support schools who are using START, but also to help you to get the most from it and find out more about our features and functionality and what you can do with them.
I'm John, I'm one of the directors at UXplore. I'm going to help Jenna with today's session. I'm going to talk you through what the framework is that's going to help you to use START to create your delivery plan. And I'm going to be answering a few questions, keeping an eye on the chat as Jenna's talking you through some more stuff later.
So those of you that have joined us for some of our previous webinar sessions will have seen this diagram before. So we are now on our third and final upgrade package, okay? And all three of these make up a full subscription for our online careers platform. So we are today talking about resources and reporting, which is actually ironically the middle one in that diagram. And what this is about is creating a structure for students to be able to work through the platform and to be able to obviously find the information that they need, but of course also for yourselves to be able to structure that journey as well. And likewise then be able to report on that information and find out what's happening with your young people. We have done sessions on user management and interactions before, and you'll be able to catch up with those on the recordings as we were mentioning earlier, and we'll be sharing the link at the end of the session. I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind you that should you wish to upgrade your subscription with us in any way, user management is a requirement for that part, okay? So that is the ability to create accounts and then be able to obviously use that information accordingly. Now I'm going to pass over to John and he's going to take you through the what of the START framework and indeed the whole of the resources and reporting package and a little bit more about it. So John, over to you.
We're going to be talking to you about the whole webinar is going to be about where the tools are and what the tools are to be able to help you to use START and create a plan for using START in your school, because that's the most important thing really, isn't it, with a software and a platform, is that you want it to form an important part of your careers program. Sometimes knowing what to do, where to start is one of the hardest things, and so what we want to show is how easy that can be, and that you can use that to be able, you can use what we're calling the START framework to be able to create that plan. But just to put it into context of where those tools exist, they exist within this resources and reporting package. For those of you who use START already, you might be used to the reporting package as something we talk about. And this is the evolution of that reporting package. Now it's called resources and reporting. So just to break that down into the two elements, resources, the resources is the framework, the START framework, a bank of activities and guides and various things for you to be able to create that plan for using START, which students are going to use it and when, and how they're going to use it and how they're going to benefit. That's what the framework is going to help you with. And we're going to talk a lot about that in this webinar. From a reporting perspective, currently on START, you get reports on your students' activity. It's going to be exactly the same in principle, but the reports are obviously going to be different and improved in this new version. So you'll get access to reports on students' use of the framework activities. So when they complete activities, what they're saying in those activities, so what answers are they giving and various things to give you some insight. So you get those, but we don't want to miss the opportunity, although we won't be covering them on this particular call, to also let you know that within the reporting package, you get access to reports against other things such as student skills. So we've got the skills builder framework, and that's in another webinar. We'll cover that. You've got digital skills. Again, we'll cover that in a separate webinar. But as students rate those skills and rank them, you'll get reports on those to see which students are saying how good they are at certain things, and you'll be able to see the change over time, as well as career aspirations. So based on sector interest, veterinary, photography, nursing, whatever it might be, which students are interested in which particular career pathway. So there'll be reports around them as well. So if you are used to the current version of START and the reporting package, you can see in grey there the reports that we currently offer and how they map into this new version. So if you're used to the current Gatsby progress report on START, We've got a replacement for that and an updated version in the new Start. I'm going to show you that today. And again, same with if you're used to getting your qualification and your subject destination aspirations out of the current platform, you'll be able to get that here too. So that's just an idea that we've not lost anything, we've gained. So I wanted to make sure, so the Start framework is a part of the resources and reporting package. A really important piece, the heartbeat, if you like. And we are going to launch into a demonstration of it in a minute, and that will help it to make sense. But just to give you an idea of what it is, if you were kind of with us during National Careers Week, we released a few activities which were a bit of a trial for the kind of activities that are going to be in the Start framework. So really simple step-by-step things for students to do: videos, read something, download a worksheet, maybe complete a checklist and answer some questions. That's what those activities were, and they're very much like the activities that are going to be in the framework. The activities, though, will also guide a student to use Start. So it might tell them at one point in the activity to go off and do something and look at a job profile, or go and rate something in their profile. It will guide them to do the right things at the right time. And these activities, and we're going to explain all of this in more detail, they can be done by students independently. They're designed to do that. But they're also designed in a way that you might take these and build them into a lesson that you're delivering. So whereas it might take a student 20 minutes to complete an activity independently, you might decide, actually, I can see the activity, I'm going to weave that into an hour's session where we will talk around the worksheet, we'll get into groups, and then we'll do the individual piece as well. So there's flexibility in how the activities are actually developed and presented. We'll come on to that. We've also based them around levels and themes. So the bottom left and top right of that grid. Levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. Now, they're all levels and all activities are always available to all students, but we've created the levels as a guide because they're broadly related to Key Stage 2, 3, 4, and 5, beginner through to expert. The content within the activities is just more appropriate for that age of student. And particularly when we come to making choices around study, if you're doing, for example, the intermediate level, which is roughly aligned to Key Stage 3 type activities, then there's activities within that level that are around things like making GCSE choices. Doesn't mean to say that they have to do that in year 9 or in year 8 or whatever. You can choose when they do that. And in fact, there's some stuff within the beginner and intermediate levels that I would recommend that even some year 10s do, but you'll get to pick and choose from it as to what you think is appropriate as well. But we've used that as our guide. The themes are, and I'll cover these in the demonstration, so career basics right the way through to exploring the labour market, applying for jobs, lots of stuff in there. And again, what the framework will give you is impact. So you'll be able to see against the Gatsby benchmarks or the new CDI framework, if you're familiar with it, have students done something against a particular benchmark? How many have done it and what have they done? You'll get those reports, but also students are going to get value as well, because it's almost the trying to think of what it would be, but there'll be a minimal amount of effort on your side to go, right, we're going to do these activities. Students go off and do them. You can rest assured then that they're going off and doing things appropriate to the theme and the level of what you want them to do, and that they're getting some benefit because it's helping them to explore their career and their study journeys. They're also building their Start profile, and you get the reports to demonstrate that that's actually happening as well. So this is designed to really make it a lot easier for you to look at Start and go, great, there's tons of stuff in there. Where do I start? Start with the framework. That will be your guide for all of this. So I just wanted to outline that just to set the scene. I'm going to dip into a demonstration in just a couple of minutes, but first, Jenna, you just wanted to pull out a couple of reasons as to why we think this framework is really important for schools, didn't you?
I did. Thank you very much, John. Okay, so we've already talked then about the what of the Start framework, and I'm going to take you through a bit of the why. Now, one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, and John has already mentioned it briefly, we've shown you where the changes have happened. So those of you that are familiar with the current version of Start will have seen where those changes have hopefully come from. But one of the things that's really important to us at You Explore is about being responsive to the changing needs of schools. And obviously, of course, the last 15 months more so than ever. So this feedback and the reason, why we've created this new version of Start and a lot of the content and kind of the functionality indeed made is based on feedback from careers leaders such as yourselves, in terms of how they wanted to be able to structure programs, but also how they wanted to collect information in terms of student engagement. So hopefully you'll see some of those things that perhaps you're looking for in the START framework, and we're going to talk through why it might be something useful to you right now. So first things first, it's about finding the right activity at the right time. So as we've said, structure, is something that's really important, and we want to be able to support you to structure your careers education using your own program of sorts, of course, but using resources that we can provide for you. So John's already mentioned how the activities are, can be filtered or searched by level, theme or benchmark to make sure that you're meeting the needs of your students. But of course, as well, being able to prioritise activities within a certain benchmark, for example, as well. Now, the activities are ready to go. So we're saving you that valuable time, which you usually have to spend on preparation or creating resources. But it also means the activities are available and there at the particular time that perhaps a student needs them as well. So for example, students that are preparing to make a transition. Now that could be, students from Key Stage 3 to Key Stage 4, but of course also students moving obviously post 16 and post 18 as well. And we've got a series of activities on each of those themes or each of those areas that are designed to showcase areas of the platform that will support students to make that relevant choice, but for you to also be able to access some information about what they're considering and what they might like to do next as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, the students obviously have their own information, but they can also easily follow the levels themselves as well independently, access the information when they need it, and the activities will help them find the parts of the platform that they need, okay, at that right point. So they may well have explored it themselves, but it means that they are accessing the information that you want them to see. Okay, and as we go through the demo later on, you'll see the interactivity between the activities themselves and also specific areas of the platform as well, preventing the need for students to duplicate that information. Adaptability. Okay, I appreciate we've got lots of people here, some from schools, some from colleges, some from perhaps some independent settings as well. So we know that you all need to be flexible because you are delivering these activities or indeed careers education programs in very different ways. So the key thing for us when creating the START framework was about being able to use it in a way that works for you and your students, and finding and using the activities based on the resource that you actually have available and in front of you. Now, it could be access to computers. So some of you might be fortunate enough to have computer rooms and have regular access to them. Alternatively, it might be that you don't. Not only that, time allowed for careers education. So whether that's a tutorial, a drop-down day, or needing to set an activity for homework. We also as well are responsive to last minute issues such as staff cover, room changes, technical issues. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with these and have probably experienced them at some point. So in light of those, we've made every effort to accommodate the variables that you're going to encounter. So let's take the format of the activities, which again, you're going to see very shortly. So you'll notice that we're catering to those different delivery styles that I mentioned. So for example, we've got a combination of videos that you can use to show front of class. There's also some worksheets that you can download that the students can then upload to their lockers later on. And also as well, we've got the opportunity for students to go off independently to research and study. Okay, so if you don't have the ability to set students' activities in school, because of course it's a jam-packed timetable already, now more so than ever, you may well want to set students opportunities to do that outside of school. And these are nice segmented activities that will allow you to do just that. Okay, so blending online and offline careers learning. So what I mean by that is the activities that you might do in terms of students exploring information, but there's also the activities that you're already doing in school that are supporting students learning. And the key thing for us is that you're able to use those both in a collaborative way, okay? So for us, and important for us, for START to be effective, it should be embedded in your careers program as much as possible. And our new version means that actually everything you do can underpin your entire careers program. Okay, so there are elements of the framework that will support you in all areas. So not only can you choose the activities and when you want to deliver them, we've also got activities to support those other careers activities in school as well. So for example, let's take your year 11s who might be coming up to a post-16 guidance interview, and you want them to come to that session ready and prepared with some examples of what they'd like to do so that you can really support them. It might well be that you want them to go off and do a series of activities around post-16 choices so that when they arrive with you, you can actually discuss what they have decided to do and obviously, respond to that should you need to. Alternatively, you might have a group of students that are ready to make a visit to university or are booking in some of those, visits and days. And of course, you want them to be ready or as ready as they can be before then as well. So it may be that you set them an activity to get the most out of it before they actually make the trip. Alternatively, you can use the activities to complement learning as well. So let's say you've done some assemblies or tutorial sessions with year 10s who are ready to go out on work experience. You can then set them an activity around making the most of that experience to complement what you've already discussed with them. The activities themselves have got a number of methods that support that. So John's already mentioned, we've got checklists in there of things that they can do, suggestions of what they might wish to prepare, but also some space for them to have the opportunity to reflect as well on what they have learnt. Now, this is something that I have a lot of conversations with schools a lot of the time, and it is about the ability to work alongside your colleagues, especially when you're all very, very busy people. And you know yourself that in an ideal world, of course, we'd love to see careers education featuring in multiple subject areas and being part of everyday conversations in school. So we've designed our activities to encourage this and allow you to use them across the curriculum in a simple and accessible way. Now, the simplicity of the activities themselves means you don't actually need to be an expert in START or careers to deliver them. So you can choose which members of staff have access to the framework. That's actually something that we'll talk about a little bit later. But you can also as well then support your colleagues to support your delivery. So it might be that rather than yourself delivering these sessions, it might be that tutors are delivering them during tutor time, or perhaps a learning support assistant might be working with a small group of students, or perhaps a student one-to-one, and may well work through an activity with them. Not only that, the themes, the activities also lend themselves to what other members of staff are doing as well. So it might be that activities around self-awareness, managing emotions will fit really nicely into your PSHE curriculum, particularly for Key Stage 3 perhaps. So students can start to make connections between themselves and what they're capable of to then further inform their future choices. Or it might be that there's an opportunity to explore local employment opportunities, perhaps as part of a business studies lesson, which would then inform a conversation about the wider labour market. And last but not least, evidencing and improving. Okay, so the reporting element of the package is going to give you that insight and feedback into what your students are thinking and doing. And obviously you can use that information to further inform and shape your own programme. And should you need to make any changes or add any elements to improve that offer, then you can actually use START to, identify where perhaps those gaps are, or where you might like to add perhaps some more offline resource. Maybe it's GCSE choices for year 8 or 9, or perhaps, an activity where you need to do some more information on a particular benchmark. But you can use that information and data to further shape what you're doing.
Demonstration time, perfect. So we're going to show you it now. So hopefully a lot of what we just said will start to make more sense. But we thought that those kind of introductory slides were really important to make sure that you understood, if you know START already from the current version, what the difference is here. But also if you're brand new to this, just to give you the kind of the basics, if you like. But I assure you that you'll see it in the demonstration, that when you actually get using this, you'll see how easy it is to go find activities that would be right for your students. The question was asked in the chat during what Jenna's bit of input was around differentiating within the level. So particularly, I think specifically at that kind of expert level, so Key Stage 5, because there's obviously particularly at that age, there's a lot of difference between entry level and your kind of level 3 learners. And it's a great point, and yes, absolutely great feedback that we will work on and make sure. But like I say, all of these activities are available to all students at the same time. So it might be that you've got a group of learners who are in Key Stage 3, 4, 5, whatever, that you actually think that a beginner level activity is absolutely right for. So don't just think that students are pigeonholed into this. We're giving you access to the activities and the reports on how students are using them, but it's really over to you to go and have a look at this and decide which activities do I want my students to do and when. It'd be easy for them to access, easy for you to choose, but you ultimately are in control of the decision. You know your learners best, and you know what else is going on in your program. So again, an example would be, hopefully this time next year, students might be going off on work experience placements. We've got activities they should do before they go. We've got activities they should do afterwards as well that help with that kind of preparation and reflection piece. So you'll see those and you'll find them really easily, so that you can build them into your program and get students to use them at the right time, regardless of whether or not the age that they say they are or whatever that they are. You can pick and choose from wherever in the framework. This piece is what I'm going to do. The demonstration will kind of bring all that to life, but this is going to act as a little bit of your training. So this part of the video is going to show you how to use it. I'm going to show you how a student would use it, and I'm going to show you how you would run the reports when students have used it. So I'll be logging in as a teacher, I'll be logging in as a student. Now, to do that, you obviously needed to have created those accounts. We've covered that in a previous webinar around user management, which is fine, and the user management package. And again, the link that we'll put in the chat and at the end of the session will send you to those webinars if you've missed them. But when you subscribe and you get that user management package that is part of the subscription, that's how you'll create these accounts. So, and Jenna mentioned as well that you can control whether a teacher, so if I log in here as my teacher, you can control the permissions this teacher has. So the teacher I've logged in has access to all 3 packages that we have in our subscription. But it might be that, you know, some of your teachers, you don't want them to touch user management and interactions. You just want them to have access to the START framework because they are subject teachers or year group leaders, and you just want them to go and pick activities and run them with students. You can control all of that. So when I log in as a teacher, here's the resources and reporting window. And I'm going to click through into the reporting and resources area. You can see instantly it's dominated by the framework because it really is the main part of all of this. But further down the page, you can also see those other reports that I mentioned. They're not directly linked to the framework and what students do in it. They're linked to other things students could do on the platform, such as rate their skills around the skills builder framework or digital skills, and also those career aspirations. So as students like particular pathways and kind of sectors within the product, this is where it feeds, but that's for another time. What we're focusing on now are going to be the START framework reports, but also giving you a better idea of how to use this framework as well. So my part of the demonstration is going to be very functional. I'm going to show you what it is, where it is, and how to access it and run stuff. Jenna's then going to put it into context. She's going to give you some examples to get you thinking about how you might use this as part of your program as well. So the first thing that I want to show is the About Framework page. Now, lots of you have probably seen a version of this page already. It's part of our marketing and what we've sent out in emails, which is great. So you should have an idea already, but that lives here. And a great place to pause for a second is on this, how it works, just to emphasize what we've been talking about. Just the fact of what I'm about to do and what we've said that the framework does. I log in as a teacher. I, as a teacher, can then browse the available activities either by level or by theme that we've talked about. Once I've decided which ones I want certain students to do, I can then ask my students to go and basically complete those activities, however you want to do that. And the students do that. And as part of every single activity, not only will they answer questions and stuff, they always answer a self-assessment question at the end. And that self-assessment question, really important because it feeds your reports and lets you know that students have done it and whether or not they feel as though they've achieved the objective of that particular activity. So when a student completes the activity, you get your progress report. You also get a snapshot of what students have said in that activity. So if it's around post-16 moments of choice, for example, you're going to get some really rich data around intentions to study certain pathways, certain subjects at certain providers. So you get that data as well. But for the students also, what they do in their activities, some of that stuff will populate their profile. So start building that bank of information about themselves. It's going to support transition. It's going to support choices. It's going to support them when the time comes to write CVs and applications and personal statements as well. So that's what that does. It's a nice overview there. The rest of this page just gives you information about the levels again. So you've seen this before, hopefully, and the different themes that are available too. There's also a section around how to create your plan. And within that, we've got some information about how the different activities map to Gatsby. Come on to that in a second. few little hints and tips as well. And don't forget, Start has been rebuilt to be completely compatible with desktop as well as tablet and mobile. So from an accessibility point of view, in terms of students having access to different devices, these activities work really well on something like a tablet or a mobile too. So just bear that in mind for how you're thinking about rolling this out. Information about reporting, and then some further information there for Compass Plus users as well, because don't forget that if you've got the interactions package, which sits alongside this, every time a student's complete an activity, you could also use that to record it. And when you do, and you know which benchmark that it's hitting, because we tell you which one it's hitting, you'll be able then to download that information as well and upload it to your Compass Plus account. Again, we've covered all of that in another webinar, but it's worth just reminding you there. So we go back to the top of the page, because that's just a bit of an information page. When you log in, you'll be able to find. So what else have we got here? We're going to view the activities in a second, and kind of show you those. But in this quick links here, we've also got a quick link down to the framework progress reports, which is just this piece down here. We've got the activities and how they're mapped to Gatsby, which is another way of viewing the activities. Again, we've done that for a different purpose, so I'll show you that. I can click to the student view of activities, so how a student would see them. And also, these are the activities in development. It's worth pointing out now that the activities in here that I'm about to show you are the first set of activities we've released. And there are going to be more. There's going to be by the end of this, it's going to be about 70 different activities that your students can use, and we'll continue to add to that and grow that as we go, by differentiating within levels, but adding new activities as well. And if you've got ideas for activities, work with us, tell us, we'll create the content and we'll put them into the framework. If you've got a particular thing that you do already and we can turn it into an activity, share it with us and we'll co-create them together. So we can continue to grow these and share them between us. Just to give you an idea, if I click on this download here, so these new activities, this PDF is just telling you what more activities are to come. Again, we break it down by framework level, but I'm showing this just to give you an idea of the kind of titles of activities and what kind of topics we cover within the framework. So for example, within the career basics theme, things like this: what is income tax and how will it affect me? What's a work-life balance? Really important stuff, and particularly when you get into things like self-awareness, what's resilience, how to manage your emotions, really good connections and links to the personal development curriculum there as well. So again, another way to potentially engage that area of the school to engage and deliver some of these activities. So there's lots more GCSEs, post-18s, what are skills, lots more activities still to come that we'll be adding over the coming weeks and months ahead of September, so that you've got that full framework there as well. But the activities that are available now are the ones that I'm going to show you and we're going to demonstrate with, and they're the ones that are going to be live within a matter of hours, and you'll be able to go on if you've got this package, and you'll be able to get started, and you'll be able to look at what I'm looking at now and use this with your students. So the next thing that I'm going to do then is I'm going to view the activities, because that's what we all want to see. So here's the page. We've organized them by theme. So I've given you quick links here. You can click on any of these if you're interested in a particular theme, and it will zip you down the page to that area. But if I just start at the top with the career basics, really simple layout. Here it explains what the career basics theme is all about. And in this case, it's about helping students to understand what even is a career and what should I think about when I'm thinking about planning this thing called a career. And then at each level, there's obviously a different learning objective, and they get progressively more sophisticated, if you like, as we go through those levels. And so the activities within levels are obviously designed to address those learning objectives. Now, at this point in time, we've only got some beginner level activities available in this theme. Your future starts now, subjects and jobs, what is stereotyping? So they're listed there. And within self-awareness, again, the same kind of principle, but that theme has got a couple of different levels in there with activities, and that will just keep growing over, like I say, coming days and weeks. That will just keep growing with new activities. And clicking on one of these things, so if I'll do it just very briefly, but I'm going to come back to it in a second, it takes me straight to the activity. So as a teacher, I can view the list and I can click straight through to exactly the same thing that a student would see as well. So that's an activity there, but I am going to come back to that in a second. But it's just to prove that for you as a teacher to access them, nothing more than a click away there. You get the learning outcome for each activity as well. And the duration refers to how long we expect that it would take a student to complete this if they were doing it on their own. And we'd expect them to spend up to half an hour completing this kind of an activity. However, you might decide, like I say, to build this into a 40-minute, a 50-minute, an hour session. You might decide to bolt 3 or 4 of them together once you've had a look at them and go, we're going to do a half day and we're going to work through these activities. All up to you. It's in your gift to be able to do that. So that's one way of viewing the activities, and I'm going to come back to the activities, so don't fret. Another way to view them, because you might not want to go by level or theme, you might have the benchmarks in mind, and you might be thinking, I need to do more around benchmark 2, for example, or benchmark 8. How can the activities help me to bolster my provision in that area? So here we've got, so benchmark 1, obviously, by following the framework and using these activities, you are contributing to, if you like, a more stable careers program, because you're tracking it, you're watching all students do it. So that's helpful there. There are no specific activities other than all of them that relate to that. But as we get from 2 to 8, so the second one here, here's the benchmark and how the activities help with it. And here are the activities list again that map to it. Now, in some cases, your subjects and jobs might be really useful for this benchmark, but my guess is it's probably really useful for another benchmark as well. So in which case we map it twice so that you can see that. So you can access the activity from here if you want to as well. What you can also access from here, and I'm going to come back to it, is a report. So you'll be able to access a report to say, out of these 5 activities here that are mapped, and that will grow over time, show me my students' progress through it. And then I've got some evidence as well against that particular benchmark that my students are doing things in line with exploring the labour market. So that's great. So that's a great way of looking at the activities and seeing how the different activities map to the different benchmarks. So I'm just going to go back now to where we were. So we've come back here, and there's one more thing that I want to do before I actually log out and log in as a student, and that's just to prove again that if you are front of class and you're doing this, you can log in as you, and then you can click student view of the activities, and this is what the students will see when they log in. It's just giving me exactly the same view, and I can skim down the page. Again, students will get this, so they get again a summary by theme, they get the levels and the activities that are linked to it. So when you direct them to this, you could say, go and do all the career basic activities, or go and do all of the beginner activities. Actually, you could also, we can get students to browse by name. So you could say, go and find and make your choices post 16, in which case students can filter the thing here, scroll down, there it is, they can click on it and they can go and complete it. So there's a number of ways in which students can actually find the activities, but that was just to show you how a student would see that. But this is your main view for accessing all of the stuff that I've just talked about. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to log in as a student, and the reason for that is because I want to show you the actual activities. I could do it from here, but the other reason why I wanted to show you it is because something happens. If you notice this menu up here now, it goes from home right across to login, and the one next to login is my profile. If I log in as a student, what happens is when I've got the resources and reporting package, activities appears here. So these are only going to show when you use the resources and reporting package. So students will simply, and again, this makes it super easy. If you say to students, we're going to do some activities on start, go, right, okay, how easy is that? Click activities, I'm through, here they are. Which one are we doing? You can easily go and find it then from the list that we've shown you already, career basics or beginner level, or click the browse by name and find the activity that we need to do. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to show you an example of an activity. So you might have said to students, let's have a look at, we're all going to do your interests and jobs activity. So students would come here, and find the activity and then click on it. So now they're in this area here. All activities look very, very similar in their style and layout, just for familiarity. I've chosen this one because it's got lots of good stuff in there that I can show you, because not every activity has a worksheet, but the majority of them will. So you can see that here, that introduction for a student, download worksheet. So students can click that, and what it does, downloads for them. If I bring that up as well, hopefully this is working and you can see it. Bear with me. Click into it, take a second just to open. Here we go. Come on. There we go, hopefully that's showing. So here's a worksheet for this particular activity that I've got here. I've got a learning outcome, I can type my name, my year group and the date. And there's an activity of things that I can do here, and I follow the instructions of what it's saying. But it's great when there's an offline activity. You could print this out for 30 students, deliver the activity from the front of class. They could complete the worksheet if they wanted to. But they basically, it will tell them when to use that worksheet in the activity. But the first thing they're going to do is they're going to watch a video. Then the next step, you're going to need your worksheet for this step here, okay? And the worksheet explains what you need to do. In this case, students will click on the different interests that they've got here and explore some jobs. So I might click on fitness. Brings me through to some jobs related to fitness. I might view this occupation here and get some labour market information about it, description, some entry requirements and common tasks. It's that information that I'm going to need to complete my worksheet. So that's how that would work. I'm going to flick back here. So students will do that, complete their worksheet, then I'm going to come back to their activity. This step helps them to, what do you want to do? Think about some jobs, write them down. I've already written some down here that I'm interested in doing. I can make some more notes about the jobs as well. So this is just a bit of thinking through for students, a bit of data capture. And then also students can start to rate their interests. So there's lots of interests here above the ones that we've explored above: animals, art, building things. Students can go through and they can rate their interest like I've done already. How interested are you on a scale of 1 to 5? You can click these links to view more jobs related to it as well. Students can go through that. And then the all important self-assessment question at the end: do you understand the link between interests and jobs? That's what this activity wanted to do. Student can say yes or no, and when they click yes, hopefully, and they say I'm done, they complete the activity and they bring them back to this page with that activity complete. Now that will then feed your reports, which I'll come on to in a second. But what it's also done, I'll just take a second to show you, in the student's profile, if I click on interests, which was the topic of that activity, here I have that same component, if you like, that was in that activity, those interests that I was rating, it's here as well. If I change them here, it actually changes as well within the activity. So if a student comes across their profile, for example, and rates their goals and starts filling things in here, when they do the goal setting activity, which provides a structure and forces some thinking, what we actually encourage students to do in the activity is to reevaluate these so they can change them within the activity as well, which then updates their profile too. So that's a really nice way of having that. If a student's done stuff in their profile, the activities will help them and force them to think about their answers and really to go through them again. So it doesn't matter if they've done it in their profile, they can review it within their activity as well. So I'm going to log out. And I'm going to log back in now as a teacher. So I'm assuming students have done that activity and any others that I've set as well. If I drop back in as my teacher, I'll finish now by showing you the kind of the remainder, if you like, of the framework package. So far I've been able to view the activities, choose the ones I want by Gatsby or theme or whatever, tell my students to go and complete them. Students have gone off and done them. So now I'm going to come back and access these framework progress reports. I'm going to access it down here actually, just to show you that I can. So then I'm into the framework progress reports section. Activity progress by activity or by Gatsby benchmark. They're the two main ways in which you can do this. You can do it by theme or level, or you can just export all of your activity progress data if you want to. But the two main ones are activity and benchmark, are the two that I want to show you now. So if I do activity first and I click in, it brings me to reporting by activity. In each of the cases, by activity, by level, by theme, by Gatsby benchmark, I always get a little explainer video where we explain to you how to use this report. And that's going to cover what I'm about to say now. But you can, if you wanted to, when you log in, you can watch the video again and you'll pretty much hear what I'm about to say. But how you use this report. So what you get is, here's all the activities again and the theme organized by levels. And you can click view reports. If I do that for, which one should I do? Let's do it for let's go to the advanced level. Let's do the Your Next Move post 16. So let's have a look at that report. So that brings me to the report page for that activity. So let's imagine students have completed it. The great thing about this report is it's telling me now This is helping me to meet Gatsby benchmark 7 and 8. And it's also, if you're familiar with the new CDI framework, it maps to the managed career category, of which there are 6, I think. So it's telling me here, I've got evidence that I'm doing things with my students against these benchmarks and these things in the CDI framework as well. So that's useful information. Reports then have 2 aspects to it: the student progress, and that is effectively that is effectively how many students have completed it by answering those yes/no questions. And later on, there's some additional insight data which I'll come to in a second. But if I just show you, I can filter by my year group, so I can go off and do that. Or I can filter by any teaching groups that I've set up as well, and then I hit my filter, and it brings up one line every time, just one line. And that one line is the question that we ask at the end of the activity. It's a self-assessment question. So I can see that 3 students have completed this activity. They've all said yes. They understand now that the post-16 choices they need to make, and they know the support available to make it. Great. How do I know which students they are? I simply export it here, and it gives me a list of those students and what they've said effectively. So I now know that I've got at least 3 students who've done that activity, and they feel prepared to kind of move on to that next step. If I want a little bit more detail in this activity, I can go into the additional detail sections, same principles apply, hit the filter button. And in this case, I'm getting some data here on preferences. So which of those students who've completed it, do they have any preference for full-time study or part-time study or whatever it might be? What qualifications do they think they're suited to as well? Same principles apply. I export the data, and it tells me which student is which and who's preferring an A-level route versus a BTEC route, whatever that might be. What else we saw in that activity? Checklist. So again, here's a checklist of stuff that the students tick in the activity itself, and you've got the results here as well. So our students getting an understanding of what it's like to go to work every day, all these things that are in there in that checklist, you get the feedback on the report here as well, and you can export the data and do with it as you please. So if I just jump back to the activity list, and just to say another one, we've got one here on stereotyping. Same principles apply. It's a different benchmark. This one's helping, a different CDI reference there as well. Progress report, exactly the same, one line of the self-assessment question, but the additional detail in this case is giving me some job insights. So based on the males and females that have answered the question here, which of them have said yes and no? Do they want to be a data analyst, designer? So you're getting some career aspiration insight. And again, exporting that will tell you which students you're able to see who's interested in which potential careers, and ultimately as well look at the balance between genders and their interest in careers as well. So that's what these reports look like when you view them by activity. If I just quickly now view them by benchmark, it's very, very similar. You don't get the insight data, like which students are interested in which particular jobs or whatever with this. You just get the results of the yes/no answers to those self-assessment questions. So again, helpful video, and you're able to click into a report. So if I click into benchmark 2 report, again, if I hit filter to reveal the results, I get 5 rows, and that means there are 5 activities that are helping to meet this particular benchmark. Now, I showed you those earlier on the Gatsby mapping page. There were 5 activities. These are the self-assessments from those 5 activities. So I've got some data here around the labour market information. So have students explored subjects? Have they explored jobs based on interest? All of that is useful evidence that my students are doing some good stuff against that benchmark, therefore helping me on that particular journey towards that benchmark. And that's it really. If I just jump back though to something that's coming soon, so that activity data and the detail that I shared with you, what we're looking at developing now are some snapshot reports. So they'll be based around themes such as preparation for a personal guidance interview or career aspirations, whatever it might be. We'll aggregate all of those. So different insights from different activities pulled together into thematic reports for you to be able to see as well. So again, giving you another lens into the data that you've got. And we'll work with people to understand what kind of lenses they want to be able to view their data by, and they'll start to appear here. that's the basics of the kind of the demonstration done. So we're kind of at the end of that. What we want to do now, as I mentioned at the beginning, is Jenna can just spend a couple of minutes just giving a few examples of how you might want to use this. And I'm conscious that we're kind of up to our time limit, which is why we wanted to get the main demonstration done. But if you can stick around, Jenna's going to talk through now some scenarios and examples of just to get you thinking of how you might use these activities in your program. And I'll keep demonstrating, Jenna, if you just want to talk through it, and I'll move around the screen if needs be.
Yeah, brilliant. In the meantime, very quickly, John, a question that's been asked by a few people, if you can shed some light, is obviously a lot of people are having to plan their 21-22 academic year in terms of activities and things like that, and when some of these new activities will be available. I have said periodically over, of course, the next academic year, but are you able to give any more insight into any of those timelines at all?
We absolutely hope that by September, all of the activities that I mentioned on, I've still got my tab open, on this one here, our intention is that, if not all, as many of these as possible are going to be available in time for the new academic year. Now, we'll come back to everyone with more specifics on that. Certainly we'll start adding them. It might be that we add more this side of summer, but the intention is that we would like these to be available in time for September. That's the current plan. I mean, what I will do though is I'll have a chat with a couple of people in the team who will be creating these things and see if I can get a little bit more specifics, because obviously some of them might not make the cut, some of them will be staged. So it's a valid question, and yet I appreciate you guys need to plan. So let Jenna and I take that away, and let us come back to you when we share the recording. Let us try and share with you some indicative dates of when these things will be available.
Brilliant, that's great. Thanks a lot, John. Just also quickly want to reinforce for a couple of people who've asked on the chat that you will only see these activities and indeed information about the START framework if you are subscribing to us. And I will be providing the email address a little bit later, or very shortly actually. But if you want to get a tailored quote from us, you will need to email info@u-explore.com, and we will support you and give you obviously an indication of how much that will cost. Okay, but you will only see this if you are subscribing to us. Okay, so let's imagine that I am working with a group of year 11 students who will shortly be making their transition into post-16, so whether they're looking at college, apprenticeship or beyond. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to have a quick look at some of the activities that they might want to do. So I've worked out that we're looking at moments of choice. So immediately I can click up there and choose that I'm going to have a look at what's available. So immediately you can see that I have got post-16 there. So for advanced, as we said, key stage 4, but also as well post-18 is going to be added, as you saw on that list. So let's imagine that I want to look a bit more about the support that I might need. So I've thought about my subjects. I understand what my options are. So I'm now going to think about making a choice. Okay, so that's that final activity at the bottom to get a bit of an indication about what I'm going to be doing. And as John's shown you, these activities are really nice, okay, in that they're very easy for the students to work through. And as we've said as well, there's lots of different kind of elements of different activities within there. So straight away, as John scrolls down, you'll see that there's already some indication of what I've looked at. And this is actually pulled from START itself. So this is something that I may well have completed in a different part of the platform, and it's already pulled through. So it's that interactivity that I referred to earlier, where the students aren't needing to duplicate that information if they've already completed it. And as we go down, so you've got their qualifications, type of provider. Activity number 2 is an example of a table that you'll see quite a few different versions of this in the platform, but this is an example where students can search for their courses. You can see that they can filter them by distance, levels, subjects and providers, and this is based on the postcode that John put on earlier, so that links to that localized content which someone asked about earlier. So that's just one example of how I can further look into that and use a table within the activity. We've got places where students can record what they want to do, so for example here is about their preferred course, and we do encourage them to think about other options, not just the one. And likewise the same with their providers. So, you know, someone asked about where students can record this. At the moment, this is within the activity, but as John said, we're also hoping to include those in snapshot reports as well to give you a really nice, easy overview. As you scroll down, these are some of the checklists that we referred to. So students considering, you know, what they've actually thought about and is there anything else that they need to consider. So you've got things in there around entry criteria, but also as well about travel and support as well. And then as you scroll down to the bottom, this question and this element indeed is really important, because it's this key question which is going to inform the reporting. But you can see there that students can obviously write some content. And my hope would be is that my students would work through this activity and then come to me so that I can have a really fantastic chat with them, and I'm not having to spend the majority of my session finding this information out for myself. Now, the next group of students that I'm working with are students that have just started with me. So let's imagine they're year 8, okay? So they've already perhaps done a few activities in their profile, but I'm looking to get them to continue to get to know it a little, okay? So I'm actually going to go into, let's have a look. Shall we go down to a stereotyping activity, I think, which is included in our careers basics. And you can see here, because this is a beginner activity, the format is quite different. So this is nice. You've got like a little, I say like a quiz, a bit of a riddle for students to think about. There's a worksheet for them to download, which John showed you earlier. Video content again, and this is something, you know, you could perhaps do the first set of these activities obviously in front of class as well for the young people. They can go and have a look at particular jobs, and also wanted to kind of point out anywhere that you see those 3 little dots next to anything on the platform, because you will see them in other areas, brings up this nice little data set, and it's where you can collect further information for the students. Okay, so here they can make some nice notes, but for me this will get really important when they're Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5, when they are going to need to be finding examples of things that are going to contribute to things like CVs and application forms. So going back down, we refer back to our riddle, and we won't give it away, so you can hopefully find it for yourself. They can update their start profile with jobs that they're interested in, so writing the names down there, and again some further kind of content if they want to, and again that all important question at the bottom that will feed into your reporting. And last but not least, one of the things I mentioned was about students, you know, using STAR as an activity to follow up a conversation that you've perhaps already had. So for example, you know, you might have done some assemblies for students around work experience and making the most of that opportunity, because let's be honest, it is very important, and fingers crossed we'll be back to it very soon. So let's imagine that my students have, you know, talked about it, they understand, they might even have a placement already, but we're going to have a look at, you know, a real kind of focus on why it's important to them. So clicking into that activity, this is an example of actually where, you know, the students are using what they already know and hopefully then making the most of being able to record further information. Okay, so this particular activity, as you scroll down, gives them a real nice insight into skills. You can see there that there's a worksheet as well. So there's a nice little insight around, you know, getting the right job is more about qualifications. It's understanding that work experience is your first step into the world of work and actually will inform potentially future choices. Students can look a bit more about skills and how they will link to work experience. This is a really nice example of where we have Indeed embedded in the platform, and you will see this featured in lots of different places. Those of you that use Indeed regularly will know it's not the friendliest. So we really like the fact that students can explore what's on Indeed, and it is completely live. They can look at different jobs in the area. The quick info gives them an overview, okay, and then they can actually go off and have a look should they wish to, okay, so it gives them an insight into that. There's again another checklist, so a slightly different variation this time, but students can actually tick off to see if they've done some of these things. And if John hasn't already mentioned it, students can revisit these activities at any point, okay? So this particular checklist, for example, where it has the 3 dots, students can actually come back and give some indication of, you know, whether they've done any of these things and actually write some examples, so that when they're asked, which they inevitably are, of course, when they come back from work experience about what they learned, they've actually been able to record it. And of course, again, that key question at the bottom to fill in. Okay, so that's just a couple of key examples about what the students can actually do to be able to, you know, prepare themselves, but also to follow up and kind of cement their learning as well. So those of you that have been with us from the beginning, first of all, well done for sticking with us, will have seen this before. So just wanting to reiterate, we've mentioned about the recordings for the webinar. You will find those at beta.startprofile.com, and I'm just about to drop that into the chat as well, so that you've actually got, she says, there we go. And you will actually then have, of course, have the link as well to actually find out more about the START framework as well. There's a nice page there that gives you an overview, very similar to the one that John showed you earlier. Now, if you are an existing subscriber, and I have put it in the chat once, okay, now when I say existing, just to confirm, that means that you are paying for one or more of our subscription packages, okay, and what that means is that we will support you to transition your existing users. So for those of you perhaps that are, you know, have mentioned that you're still seeing the original version, or perhaps looking to transition now, then that is where obviously you get on board, and you can get in touch with us and we'll support you. If you're brand new or you're looking for a quote, please get in touch with us on info@uexplore.com. Now we have got a couple more sessions coming up on our webinar, and one of the things that we are really excited about, and indeed is one of my favourite things on the platform, is the Skills Builder framework. So we mentioned it earlier that is part of the reporting package, but we are going to go into a bit more detail about how we are using it on Start. Now, this is not on our webinar series. You can actually search for it on Eventbrite and register from there. Okay, so if you're interested, please look for Skills Builder on Start via Eventbrite, so in the Eventbrite website, and obviously join us for there. And we've got representatives from Skills Builder and our very own John Arundel, who's going to be taking us through that one. And the next one in our series is going to be on the 23rd of June, and we're going to be taking you through our virtual employer encounters. Okay, so we'll be sharing a bit more about some of those virtual work experience elements, and indeed our sector and employer insights that John's also mentioned briefly today as well. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. Very appreciated, and hopefully we'll see you at the next couple of sessions. Wishing you all the best for the start of your new term, and yeah, any questions, please do just get in touch with us or drop it onto the chat. For now, we'll stick around for a few minutes or so, but get out there, enjoy the sunshine if you have it, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon.